Welcome to another Gamma Partner Artist Feature interview. Today we speak with Mio. Mio speaks on all things working with her hands, how her creative streak really spawned from being a football fanatic and creating tifos and street art, from Basquiat to Banksy, pixel art, and now cubism. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Okay, very excited to have Mio with us today. Mio is an artist on Bitcoin who's been releasing work for quite a while. She's recently become a partner artist, which is very exciting. She'd released work on Gamma prior to becoming a partner and then since becoming a partner. But enough from me, Mio. I'd love for you to share your story. You can go as far back as you like when you first realized that you were creative, when you got into art, your inspirations, where it all started, and sort of, I guess, talk to us about the journey to this point.
All right. Thank you for having me, first of all. And it's always hard to know where to start. Where did the creativity begin? I think I have been lucky to have a family that has been a bit creative, and especially my father. He has always pushed me to do things on my own and try things. He taught me how to build my own skateboard and do stuff with my hands, and we share the same interest of building things, doing things, painting things, and so on. So I think he planted the seed to my creativity. uh, you know, in school, I was in this art class when I was like 13, 14 years old, and I had this urge to be creative, but I didn't have the teacher who encouraged my creativity. So I sat around and I was looking. I remember I had this Polish friend who was so good in drawing like perfect portraits, and I was looking at my own artwork and I was like, no, I can't do this. And I didn't have the teachers who were encouraging me to do my own, be my creative the way I could be. um, but from that, I always have had this. I wanted to do stuff with my hands and so on, and therefore I have learned a lot of skills because I like to do things with my hands. But later on in life, I have a huge soccer interest, football. I would say football interest. So I was in that kind of environment and culture where you are a almost fanatic supporter, where you are following your team everywhere. It's almost like a lifestyle. And if you have seen European soccer, you can see in this game they have something called tifos, where the teams are entering the stadium, and you have all these huge flags, um, etc. And I began to. I was taught how to do these flags, how you were painting, using at the time overheads, and you were sewing and so on. And that also involves some street art in it, in that culture. It is a natural part of it that you kind of decorate your part of the city in different ways, and you are being creative in that environment, creating fun stuff, some provocative stuff, and so on. So therefore, I began looking into street art, and there I found a platform how to express myself with different methods. You could do. I do calligraffiti. For example, I don't do normal graffiti, but calligraffiti I do, and I do stencil art because of the my interest in soccer. So I found that this amazing platform to be creative, how to express myself, and sometimes it was more of my opinions also within this environment, because to understand the soccer culture, it's quite territorial. So anyways, going on from that, as I said, I always like to challenge myself and teach myself, and learn things. And I began to look into different techniques. And I learned from YouTube and on my own how to paint in different techniques, how to use it. So it was a couple of years where I sat and dug really, really deep into how to do it. And there I learned. I would say that I have my. It is in my main technique when it comes to physical paintings. I think my ground technique, so to speak, is in watercoloring, actually. And that is quite fascinating how you can work with watercolors on a very high level. And it's one of the most difficult techniques there is to really master. Uh, anyways, but then when I have sat on my own painting my paintings, I sold a little bit to friends and some small exhibitions and so on. Um, I was entering Web3, and yeah, the story of me entering Web3 and art. I began on for 5 years ago. Actually, it's more than 5 years ago. I was entering ETH and did a couple of artworks there. It's nothing that I want to show now. It was in the beginning. You didn't really know how to use Web3 properly, anyways. So I was working there, and then I moved over to Solana and tried there. And that is kind of fun because the fees are low. Um, you have more freedom in a way to experiment because the fees are so low. It's I and now I say inscribe, but to put up on a marketplace. So it was a good experience for me, being on Solana, being able to try out some different techniques. What did I want to do on with my art? And in the beginning of 2023, I saw that Ziggy Shark was talking about ordinals and Bitcoin. And I was so curious, so I kind of followed over to ordinals. And it took me a little while before I really dared to actually try and put my art up on Bitcoin because it was kind of intimidating in a way, I guess, at the time, because fees was high, and you need to make sure that the art you wanted to put up there was clean and good, and you needed to think about the fees. So therefore, in late 2023, I put my first pixel art collection, and because of the file size, and that is Node Birds. So yeah, that is my journey into ordinals and my creativity.
That's a really interesting story, and I'm going to go back to the start. It's so fascinating that you said obviously you were interested, you felt that drive to be creative in school, but then how football or soccer, we call it soccer in Australia, but I appreciate that it's called football in Europe and around the world, drove that creativity in you, and you were creating tifos, and it's fascinating. I'm a football fan myself. The team I follow in England actually has a couple of Swedish players, coincidentally, but nonetheless, there is a lot of street culture and edge, and like you said, decorating your part of the city. That must have had a bit of an influence on you, because when we have a look at your work later, I think that some of that still kind of trends through, I think.
Absolutely. And what I wanted to do was also to bring that sort of style. I wanted to take a part of the street and put it on Bitcoin. That has been my intention when I have done my artwork, like with punks or my stencil work. So I wanted to see if I could mix that in a good way. And that is why I did it, because of my background in football. Yeah.
And it's interesting to take something like the work you were creating for the football games, or perhaps the street art you were doing, which is, I guess, quite temporary in a way, and then you're making it permanent on Bitcoin. That must be quite interesting for you.
Yeah, it is. It is a different environment. Yeah, as you say, it is temporarily with the tifos and so on, and then you pack your flag and put it in a corner. That is what you normally do with tifos. You don't reuse it. But with doing art on Bitcoin, I was thinking really, really hard when I first did my stone collection. It is black and white. I wanted to strip it down really and really highlight this stencil work that you can do. And I had another idea that perhaps people wanted to try it themselves. But it turned out it was a bit difficult for people to, because it is a process when you are using a knife, cutting them out. It is a hard process. It is for most people if you don't use a laser cutter or something. Anyways, so I was thinking I wanted to do a collection. I always try to find a deeper meaning with everything I do, with every artwork that I do. I want to have some deeper meaning with almost everything that I do. So therefore, I wanted to do some characters, because I, as I said in the beginning, I was a bit intimidating having it permanently on Bitcoin because it can't be changed. So I really thought it through, and I came up with these characters that was representing something more than just random artwork. So it was important to me I created my little crypto girl that is almost, at least among my collectors, little crypto girl is one of the icons that I have done. It is the little girl with a balloon that is have these Banksy vibes, and she looks a little bit depressed. And I have an artwork where it says, "Can the devs do something?" And she looks really depressed. And one collector said it looks like she's asking if someone could help the world, actually. So anyway, so that is what I'm trying to take from the street, the expression of something more, and I wanted to do it on Bitcoin. Therefore, I did the stencil collections.
Yeah, and I remember when you put this out, and I've just been scrolling through it. We've got it up on the screen. You can see the little crypto girl. We saw Ross. We saw, the Spartan from 300. There's a lot of references to pop culture. Like you said, there's a Banksy influence. There's that street art influence. It seems there was a lot of intention behind this set. Talk us through that, but also talk us through that process of, I remember messaging you and you said, your hands are so sore from creating the stencils. I'd love to know, but you said earlier you like to work with your hands. So again, we're seeing a lot of your history come out in the way in which you create.
So everyone who has been working with stencils, and if you do it like the street way, you are not cheating by sending it to a laser cutter. Then you use, I don't know what the word in English, these knives that you have for packaging,
Could be a Stanley knife.
Yeah, perhaps a Stanley knife. So if you are sitting there with that kind of knife and you push, because usually, normally the OG way to do it is to use whatever you have around. And lots of times you have some sort of plastic in different thicknesses, and then you can it really hurts in your hand after doing the cutouts with stencil art. So yeah, it is a fun way to work with your hands, but it can hurt. Oh my god, because you put so much pressure, and it's such a fine work, depending on the thickness of your plastic. But if you're going to do a proper work, and you want to spray it a couple of times, you the fabric or the material that you use needs to, otherwise it will break. If you just have some paper, it would, you can't spray it 10 times, so therefore you want to work with some sort of plastic so you can reuse it, and that is why you have this thickness of your stencil. Yeah, and so what I did also with when I'm working, I'm always trying to do. I think it is important, in Web3. Trust is all we have. I mean, that is the pure, the core in what we do. So for my collectors to trust me that I actually are doing stencils, I needed to try and cut it out myself. So I did it on my iPad first, but then I applied it on a plastic, some plastic material, and tried to cut it out, just to see so it was authentic, that it could be made as a real stencil that you could actually go out and spray yourself. So I'm always trying to do that. That is also why I so many times are providing proof of work, so my collectors can see and follow the process, because so they can trust me that it is me that have done it, and they can see the whole process. And if I do AI work, I will tell you someone, because that is, for me, it is important as an artist to be try and be as genuine as I can.
I completely agree. I think transparency and authenticity are extremely key. And it's funny, and we're looking at Stockholm Syndrome now, which is another one of your collections. I assume it was done with stencils. Is that correct? And you can see, we've got some of these like Fiat is dead and fuck the cabal and I'm not your sir. And then in the other collection, I saw when and, when whitelist, and then like Jeet sleep, so I can see that there's some, I guess, like playful pokes at things we see in this space as well.
Absolutely. And when you are working with street art, especially that kind of artistic expression, that you need to be, how can I explain? You have just a certain amount of time. When a person are walking past your artwork on the street, you have just a second to catch the viewer's attention, right? So it's kind of neat to be explosive in a way, so that the person who is passing by really stops and look, what is this? It is, and that is what you see in Banksy. That is the genius thing that he has done. His artworks are so explosive that what is that? And it speaks to you, and it's kind of you say it is the poor man's canvas, right? And that is what I wanted to bring into Bitcoin, and therefore I poked at these kind of phenomena that we have, or sayings that we have, and I tried to picture them. How would I see how do I see a person who is always shouting when? Yeah, I see it as a little kid standing and shouting, absolutely. And fuck the cabal, that is an interesting piece, because all of a sudden this cabal expression exploded in Web3, and especially on ordinals. Everybody was talking about this secret cabal. That was what is that? Is it? Are we in some secret meetings with, and having velvet robes, or and deciding of the fate of all ordinals community members? So, but in a way, I wanted to do some. I was thinking, who can express this in the most cool way? So what I did was I used AI, and I said to AI, could you do a grown-up version of Pippi Longstocking? And that is the result. So because Pippi Longstocking, as you know, is a Swedish child book character, the strongest little girl in the world, and I'm trying to where I can, I will try and have her in my collections, because she was a big part of my life growing up. So I thought it could be kind of cool that she was grown up and still had this, because she's a rebel child, and she could be the one saying it. So fuck the cabal. That is how my process was.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned that I didn't realize that it was that Pippi Longstockings was from a Swedish narrative. Do you find that the country of, where you live, your home, does that influence your work? Clearly, obviously being involved with a Swedish football team as a fanatic supporter, and then just that story, and then even the title of that other collection, Stockholm Syndrome, some of it must pour through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a. I where it suits. I try to put in some Swedish culture in it. It's not that it is my main focus, but at times I think it's fun to implement the kind of Swedish way. Yeah, so I have Pippi Longstocking, and as you say, I called it Stockholm Syndrome. I think I have it in some other collections also, something Swedish. Yes, I do have it, and that is it. I was dropping an AI collection now, just a couple of days ago, because it was Women's History Month. And in that collection, I had all these Viking, not all of them, but a couple of Viking goddesses. So that collection is that you can see the name, and then you can go and search for the history behind your piece. That is the whole intention. So you learn about women's history, and there you can see typical Viking women and what they stand for and so on. And also in my other collections, for example, in Punk Royale, you can see that I have been playing with backgrounds, and you can see this old stone carvings that are a couple of 1,000 years old that we have in Sweden. You can find them in some of the artworks. You can also find eyes of Odin, like in Norse mythology. And you can also find runes in some of my collections that has this Scandinavian heritage. So I'm trying to bring in some of the of my Scandinavian heritage. Absolutely.
It's interesting how it seeps in, even if it's not intentional to start with. We can't really not deny, but I mean, we can't really help our environment and where we live and the culture affecting the way in which perhaps we communicate, the way we create art, the way we cook, so many different things. It's really interesting. And I noticed in those collections, naturally, we saw Ross Ulbricht, we saw Frida Kahlo, we saw the character from Scream, we saw Pepe. Lots of homages and references to pop culture must influence you as well.
For sure. But it was also about making these very strong characters that would turn out good in a stencil way. But I think it is I mean, how should I put it? We see a lot of not so well thought of collections in Web3. It is a lot of cartoons that has no deeper meaning. So for me, I always try to find a deeper meaning, and that is why I turn to pop culture, because I think some of them are really icons, and I think that legacy should be preserved. And it is my taste, of course. In Stockholm Syndrome, for example, we can see that I have the character, Robert De Niro's character from Taxi Driver, as one of the characters. I think, and that is my own taste. So I just try and put them on Bitcoin to kind of preserve some of pop culture's history, and that is why I have done it.
It's an amazing canvas for preservation, and De Niro is certainly iconic, that's for sure. And if we have a look at the Voorhees collection, which was a range of editions that you put out, but we can see, and similar to your Punks Royale collection, there's that color, there's quite detailed artwork, which is very different to what you said with your pixel art with Nodebirds. No disrespect to pixel art at all. I love pixel art. It's terrific, but very different in that way. How did you find being able to put this sort of work at the quality and the caliber that you were happy with the constraints of file size on Bitcoin?
So what happened, that I do think that most people across ordinals are connecting. When they think of me or art, they see the kind of Basquiat style, I think, with Punk Royale and Voorhees collections. I think I reached the broader public, broader audience with that collection. And the story was that I have known you for a while, quite a while also. So my first collection that I was planning on having, we launched it, but that was a pixel art collection. It was in the summer of 2023. But that summer, I also started to experiment some with. I wanted to mix. No, so this is actually what happened. I was playing with stencils, and I was asking one of my neighbors if he could help me with the character that I have drawn, and it was a portrait of a sophisticated devil. And he helped me cut it out, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that piece, because I felt, but man, I'm too old to go out and spray nowadays. I can't go out with my can and spray it. So, anyways, but I thought that the character was so good, so I wanted to do something with it, and I sat around and played around, and I had this, as I said, my Scandinavian heritage, and I wanted to do something that was purely me, that I felt this is what I want to do. This is how I can express myself with all my experience and knowledge. And therefore, I started to do the first character actually for punks. But I was offered to put it up, like the paintings that are behind the first punks collection. I was offered by one of Ordnal's biggest guys to put it up on Bitcoin, but I felt, no, this is not the time. This is not the time. Because at the time it would have been really, really expensive, putting an artwork, a drawn artwork, up on Bitcoin. So, but then people told me, but why don't you do some art and I was playing around with pixel art, and to be honest, we saw some node monks at the time. It was around Christmas, November, December 2023, and it was so much pixel art coming out because of the file size. And I was looking at all these artworks, and I said, I think I can do it a little bit better, to be honest, in a more artistic way. So therefore, I tried to do this cute collection that had some personality. And I think I did pretty well with notebooks, because you can see they have personalities. I like to work with expressions. And it was also important with having the right palette for it. So the palette is a bit retro for my first notebooks collection. And that is how I came up with that. I wanted to do a collection, a pixel collection that had more thoughts behind it. And that is why I did a small collection. I think it is 100 pieces, my first notebooks collection. So yeah, that is how that happened.
Interesting. And tell us about your color choice. For example, we can see in the profile picture that you're wearing and using in this podcast, there are those deep reds and oranges and yellows, and I suppose almost a turquoise blue. And I think that we do see a bit of that cohesion across what you create. Are there colorways that you like to use, and potentially why?
The palettes that I use, I tend to go back to these intense colors that has a kind of a retro vibe in it. So I don't use a bright yellow. I want to use a warm yellow. And if it is turquoise, it isn't the brightest. I want to have some medium in it, and because I think it looks the best. And but I when I'm working, I'm really careful with the palettes. I look deep into it, and what fits, what doesn't fit, and so on. And I did it for Nobirds, and especially I did it for my second Nobirds collection. That is also pixel art, and that came about because I was offered a very old B9 Sats, the oldest actually for the time being, in March last year. So I was thinking, what should I do with these old B9 Sats? Because I didn't have a lot of money and so on. So and it was expensive to inscribe. So I thought the most reasonable thing must be to do another follow-up of Nobirds and put them up on these old B9 Sats. And I was thinking, okay, if it's going to be the oldest, I wanted it to be like a Nodebirds wall when you go on All.io. And there I was really thinking it through, what colors would make sense. So the base is a very bright orange, and you can see a little beige, and you can see black as the base colors in that collection, because that was the purpose. I wanted the collection as a whole to look good on All.io, because it was the oldest in March last year, and I wanted it to have that retro vibe, and I think I nailed it. So yeah, and then when I'm working with punks and so on, I have the tendency to go back to these retro palettes as a foundation. But of course, when I'm working with Basquiat, I have been looking into the technique behind Basquiat, how to do it, and I don't know what is called in English when you are using that the main colors in the palette, like the basic colors, blue, red, yellow, and so on, how he has been using that, and how he also all of a sudden, because you have that, you want to have a surprise in your painting, and therefore all of a sudden you use pastels. That is typical Basquiat. So you have these basic colors combined with the pastels. So therefore, I have tried also to use my base retro palette, and then also at times I have these other colors as a surprise. That is how I have been thinking.
And we can see that shine through in your debut prints, Prudentia, as well.
Yeah. That is an interesting piece, because there I was really pushing myself. Prudentia it's a more cubism piece, and what I was going for there was also to have these. I wanted it to almost have the feeling of a town. Like with houses, some I don't know, because I wanted it to look a little bit industrial, to have the contrast with the black kind of pipes and lines, and you can see like a contact. I don't know the word in English. These electrical
Coils.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see that I wanted to have it a kind of a terracotta town meeting this industrial, where the hard meets the soft kind of vibe, and then I go in with the other colors as a surprise. The turquoise, you can see it again in that. For example, you can see the red also. So I was. I have always loved the Art Deco era. I really like that kind of expression. So I wanted to, in a way, recreate it in my way. And that is how Prudentia came along. And I wanted to have the feeling where technique, the new meets the old, technique meets humanity, and that is why you can see these faces in there. It's female meeting the hard industrial, that is, I like to play with contrast. That is how that came.
Yeah, so you can really see that. When I first looked at it, I did notice it was almost like a pipe system or something with some depth to it. And then Prudentia, you said, well, I've read that, yeah, the Roman symbol of wisdom and foresight. So we can see that strong, I suppose, feminine presence in your work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and the story behind it was my mother. She was at this art gallery, and she met one of my country's most famous modern artists. That is it sounds weird to say it when you talk about modern art and an old lady doing modern art, but she has been doing it for decades, right? And she's famous for doing these double faces, and she has been on all the big museums. She has had exhibitions in New York and so on. But my mother, for some reason, she showed my artwork with punks for her, and she said, I kind of like them, but would you ask your daughter this, because the artwork that she does is very masculine. ask her to do something more feminine and see what happens. And that is why I did Prudential, actually. And it's tribute to these artists with the double faces.
That's fascinating. How did that make you feel?
I felt kind of vulnerable because I'm so, in a way, you can hide behind an in a male dominated environment as Web3 are. It's easy as a woman to hide behind some sort of aggression, explosiveness, and so on. So it was kind of a little bit scary to do a feminine work and how that would be perceived. Because you can also see street art is a bit hard, on the hard end, and it's more a masculine expression, and so is the Basquiat style. It's almost if it's almost only men who are trying to do the Basquiat style, and so it was scary, but I was really pleased with the outcome of this piece. Absolutely. So I will try and do some more in that style because it has gotten some attention also. I have had a lot of praise for that piece actually, and I wasn't prepared for it. So that was kind of fun.
I remember when you submitted it, I was quite the fan of it, and it sold out very quickly. It's quite interesting because there's been this thread of, whether we like it or not, almost masculinity through the story in a way, because being a football fan, that would have been fascinating as a woman in that environment because that's still very male dominated. And like you said, this space is, but I think that we're maturing and evolving through that. How do you see it being navigated?
I mean, my personal journey is that I have always been in male dominated kind of environments with the football, and when I went to what's it called before university? You go to, is it high school?
High school, yeah.
Yeah, I was choosing to read. My main subject was technology and electricity and so on. So I have always surrounded myself with a lot of men for some reason. And so it has been quite natural. And what you can know about me is also I have been working for quite a long time within psychiatry. And also in the heavier psychiatry, for forensic psychiatry. And if you look at punks, when you are showing punks to some people, they actually get scared. They say, "No, I don't want to look at it because it's scary. The characters are scary when you are talking to random people in Web2." And I think it is because, of course, all these years within forensic psychiatry, I've seen some stuff for sure. This is a part of my inner world, and what I have seen, this is very explosive, aggressive, ugly. It tells a story in a way. So that is I think punks is a part of my journey within forensic psychiatry. Absolutely. So my art, it isn't consistent with the style. You can see stencils, you can see AI work, but it's also to follow my own personal journey. It actually is. So I think now it has been a year since I have been working within forensic psychiatry, and then you can see the development into some more feminine work. You can see this Prudentia, and now you can see where I highlight women and doing this very beautiful AI marble busts of women. So it's kind of interesting that my art develops along with my own my personal development. Absolutely.
And is it an outlet for you? Do you think it's a way in which you're telling your story intentionally, or that's just happened organically?
It has happened organically for sure. I don't sit at home and thinking now I should I want to paint my personal journey. No, it's I can see it looking back. Oh my God, it's so obvious where I was at the time when I did punk royale. It is so obvious. And looking back to other artworks, it's also so obvious where I have been in life. So I'm a person. I'm very emotional um, and that is not all that I am, but I express myself with big emotions, and that can absolutely be seen in my artwork. So if you want to know where I have been, yeah, just look at my art.
It's interesting. You're telling your own story, but you're also evoking emotions in others. Mio, it's been a real pleasure to have sat down and dived a little deeper with you, and yeah, found out more about you as a person and the story and your creative process. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share, or anything that you're working on next?
It first of all, it was my pleasure, and it was so nice just to be able to talk in nice and calm. You know, when you go on space, it goes so fast. So it was nice to have a calm conversation. No, I'm looking into some other things that I'm looking at generative art and what I can do there. I don't know if I will do something with it, but for sure I will try and develop more on my cubism work, because I think two of my main techniques will be the kind of Basquiat style, and then also the cubism style. I think that is the what I feel the most that I where I belong. So no, I'm looking forward to learning some more new stuff and so on. So I'm not working on anything in particular. No, but it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again, and it's a real pleasure to have you as a partner artist on Gamma.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and it's I'm honored. Thank you.